Even if you delete it, you can still think about it. You can erase the words, but the thoughts, the feelings, the memories, they remain. Choosing a positive mindset. The Unseen Deletion, a deeper look. Let's dive a little deeper into this idea of even if you delete it, you can still think about it. This isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a fundamental truth about human psychology. We've all been there. You get an angry email from your boss. You delete it immediately because you don't want to see it anymore. But the feeling of anger and frustration lingers. On the contrary, you might delete a photo of a loved one who has passed away, thinking it will ease the pain. But their memory, their smile, their voice, they are still there in your mind. This is because our brains don't work on a simple delete and archive system. Psychologists call this the rebound effect, or ironic process theory. It's the phenomenon where the more you try to suppress a thought, the more it pops up. Think about this. Try not to think about a pink elephant. What's the first thing that pops into your head? A pink elephant, right? Our brains are wired to pay attention to what we try to ignore. So clearly, simply deleting the external trigger doesn't solve the internal problem. Besides, our emotions and thoughts are deeply intertwined with our physical health. Chronic stress from suppressed negative thoughts can lead to a host of physical problems, including high blood pressure, headaches, and a weakened immune system. Not only that, but it can also affect our relationships. When we constantly try to push away difficult feelings, we can become irritable, withdrawn, and less present with the people we care about. We build walls instead of bridges. The unexpected thing was that by trying to erase the negative, we were actually making it stronger. We were giving it power by fighting against it. On the other hand, when we choose to acknowledge and reframe our thoughts, we take that power back. We aren't deleting the memory of the difficult moment, but we are choosing how we remember it. We choose to see the lesson, the growth, the resilience, instead of just the pain. Stories of resilience, the power of choice. This isn't just theory, it's lived experience. I want to share a few stories with you today. Stories of people who faced immense challenges and chose to reframe their thinking. Story 1, the health journey, Mark's marathon. Let's talk about Mark. Mark was a marathon runner, and running was his entire life. He ran every day, rain or shine. It was his identity. In parallel with that, it was how he managed his stress and connected with his friends. One day, during a long run, he felt a sharp pain in his knee. It wasn't just a niggle, it was a serious injury that required surgery. The doctor told him he might never run competitively again. The great thing is that he didn't let this crush him. For Mark, the thought of losing running was devastating. He felt like his identity was being taken away. He was angry, sad, and scared. He spent weeks just sitting on the couch, replaying the moment of the injury in his mind. He tried to delete the memory, but it was impossible. However, he eventually chose to change his perspective. He realized that while he couldn't run marathons, he could still be an athlete. He started focusing on his rehabilitation. To be possible for him to recover, he started with small, gentle exercises, then moved on to swimming and cycling. He found new ways to connect with his friends, often cheering them on from the sidelines. Thanks to that, he discovered a new passion, coaching. He started a running club for beginners, sharing his knowledge and passion with others. While he couldn't run marathons anymore, his new path was even more fulfilling. He found a new purpose. The result is that he became a mentor, a guide, a source of inspiration. His story isn't about ignoring the pain of his injury. It's about acknowledging the loss and then choosing to find new meaning. Next, let's talk about Sarah. Sarah was a talented graphic designer who had a dream of starting her own design studio. She worked tirelessly, pouring all her savings into the business. She launched it with a great deal of hope. For the first year, things were going well. Not only that, but she even landed a few big clients. But then, the economy took a downturn. Projects dried up. She found herself staring at an empty calendar and a dwindling bank account. The thoughts of failure were overwhelming. She felt like a fraud. She kept replaying all the mistakes she thought she had made. She tried to delete the fear of failure from her mind, but it was an unwelcome guest that came back again and again. Honestly, it was a very tough time for her. Unfortunately, she was on the verge of giving up. She was ready to close the business and go back to a regular job. But one day, she had an honest conversation with a friend. Her friend asked her, "What did you learn from this year?" This simple question shifted everything for Sarah. She started listing her accomplishments. She built a website from scratch. She learned how to manage finances. She built a network of clients, and she designed a portfolio she was proud of. In short, she realized that even though the business was failing, she was not a failure. She decided to pivot. She used her skills to create an online course teaching graphic design to beginners. She leveraged the network she had built and the lessons she had learned. In case she had just given up, she would never have found her true calling. In general, her story shows us that a failure can be a powerful lesson. She didn't delete the fact that her first business failed. She chose to see it as a stepping stone. Finally, let's talk about a relationship. David and Maria had been married for 20 years. They had built a beautiful life together with 2 children. However, like many long-term relationships, they hit a rough patch. They were constantly arguing about small things. The tension in the house was palpable. They both felt a growing resentment. The happy memories of their early days seemed to be fading, replaced by a constant feeling of frustration. Maria found herself replaying every argument in her mind. She tried to delete the hurtful things that were said, but the words echoed in her head. She was ready to give up. It is undeniable that they were at a crossroads. After all, they had so much history. They decided to go to a counselor. The counselor gave them a simple exercise. For 1 week, they were not allowed to talk about the problems. Instead, they had to spend 15 minutes every day talking about something they appreciated about the other person. At first, it was difficult. The negative thoughts kept creeping in, but as they practiced this exercise, something shifted. David started talking about how much he appreciated Maria's patience with their son. Maria talked about how much she loved David's dry sense of humor. More, they began to remember the reasons they fell in love. They weren't deleting the arguments. They were building a new foundation of positive memories and thoughts to stand on. Thanks to this, they were able to start working through their problems with a renewed sense of connection and empathy. It was surprising that such a simple change could make such a huge difference. How to cultivate a positive mindset. So, how do we actually do this? How do we move from the theory to the practice? It's not always easy. It's not a switch you can just flip. It's a muscle you have to train. Here are some specific, actionable steps you can take. First, practice mindful acknowledgement. Instead of trying to delete a negative thought, simply notice it. When a thought like, "I'm not good enough," pops into your head, don't fight it. Just say to yourself, "I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough." This creates a small amount of distance between you and the thought. Then you can choose how to respond. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. Next, try the gratitude journal exercise. Every night before you go to bed, write down 3 things you are grateful for from that day. They don't have to be big things. Maybe you're grateful for the coffee you had this morning, or for a kind word from a stranger, or for a beautiful sunset. This simple practice trains your brain to look for the good things, even on the hardest days. To be possible for this to work, it needs to become a habit. In addition, learn to reframe negative self-talk. Instead of saying, "I'm so bad at this," try saying, "This is a challenge and I'm learning how to get better." Instead of saying, "I'll never get over this," say, "This is hard, but I am strong enough to get through it." You are literally changing the narrative you tell yourself. Also, try the what if game. When you find yourself thinking, "What if everything goes wrong?" consciously force yourself to think, "What if everything goes right? What if the meeting goes well? What if I get the job? What if the project is a huge success?" This trains your mind to consider positive possibilities, not just negative ones. Finally, remember the power of small victories. Celebrate the little wins. Did you get out of bed on time? Did you finish one difficult task? Did you have a good conversation with a friend? Acknowledge these small successes. They build momentum. They remind you that you are capable and that progress, no matter how small, is still progress. The unending journey. We've covered a lot today. We started with the simple truth that you can't just delete a thought, and we've explored how a positive mindset is about consciously choosing your perspective. We heard stories of resilience from Mark, Sarah, David, and Maria, and we discussed practical ways to cultivate this mindset. In short, a positive mindset isn't about being happy all the time. It's about being strong and resilient in the face of adversity. It's not a destination you arrive at. It's a muscle you have to train, a journey you have to commit to for the rest of your life. It's about learning to run a different kind of race, one where you're not just outrunning your problems, but learning to navigate them with grace and strength. So the next time you feel the urge to delete a difficult thought, remember, you can't delete it, but you can change how you think about it. And that, my friends, makes all the difference. Outro music fades in slowly, same as intro, becomes more prominent. Thank you for listening to Run, Stop, Run. I'll see you next time.